Welcome everybody back to the channel, guys. Today we're going to be ranking the cities that need a UFC event the most. Those cities that have been out there that haven't been, visited since that COVID pandemic and they need to have an event there. We're going to be listing some of those cities here today and some first-time cities that the UFC should travel to. So we do have some criteria, everybody. You must have a capable arena. I'm talking 10,000 capacity or more. That's normally what the UFC goes for, NBA-size arenas. Secondly, the city's infrastructure must be capable of hosting a UFC event. So you can't have, a slum city and expect to get a UFC event. Also, they cannot have held a UFC event since the COVID-19 pandemic. And also, they must have a fighter that makes sense for the card, be that a main event fighter, be that anything. They must have a fighter that represents their people or the country. They have to have a person that they can show up for and get some support for. Let's jump right in with the first city on our list, and that is Manchester, England, the United Kingdom, everybody. They have not hosted an event since 2013. Northwest England is still yet to have a pay-per-view or even an event since COVID. Meanwhile, London has had 4 events, including that UFC 286 pay-per-view. The AO Arena works great here for Manchester. Capacity of 20,000, monitored amenities, tons of notable UK's talent to stack the card. I'm thinking a Paddy the Baddy Pimblett main event. You might be saying it's too early. He doesn't have the fan base. I know he's from Liverpool, but still, some of that Northern England type stuff going on right there. I think Paddy would do perfect here. I think that this would be a massive event for the UK to sort of, break free from just their London straight, just doing London. And, there's more to offer in the UK than just London. So I think that going to Manchester would be the perfect option, and it has a great stadium that's available, and you're going to have to start traveling around England again, and why not Manchester? I think that's the best place to go secondly in England. The second city that the UFC should return to in 2024 or in the near future is Dublin, Ireland. This absolutely makes so much sense to me. Their last event was in 2015. Before that, it was the Conor McGregor versus Diego Brandao card. And honestly, man, there's tons of more hype now with Conor McGregor. I don't think you do a Conor McGregor show there, but you get him in the crowd. You sit him cage side. You get Ian Gary to main event. You get a new swath of Irish talent. You put some UK talent on there. Some European talent, of course, as well. But it will be a huge showcase for Irish talent. It will build a massive thing in Ireland. And, they have a great fighting culture in Ireland. I think it makes perfect sense. You do 3 arena, 13K capacity. UFC has been there before. Katie Taylor just fought Chantel Cameron there. It's a great arena. Dublin makes all the sense in the world to do a UFC fight night at. I think it's the perfect plan, man. You do Ian Gary off of his win against Jeff Neal. You put him up there against a lower ranked guy and you give him that title shot. I think you do like a Ian Gary, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson from Dublin, Ireland, man. That is the perfect fight to make. Do it in Dublin. Title shot for Ian Gary afterwards. Perfect. All the hype in the world. It's great. Dublin comes in at number 2 on the list. Coming in at the number 3 spot on the list, we have Madrid in Spain. Obviously, this fight would make all the sense in the world to do. You do Ilia Topuria. You bring a pay-per-view there if he wins. If he loses, you do a fight night there against like Max Holloway or something like that. You go to the Wizink Center. It's absolutely amazing. 18,000 capacity. You bring a Spanish-speaking fight card, and it makes an impression of all of Southern Europe. You know what I mean? It's a foothold down there. You've got North Africa looking up there too. And the most important fact is that Spain has never hosted a UFC event, so their time is due. And with a guy like Ilia Topuria to main event, it would make perfect sense. And I just think that this is the perfect thing to do. I think you obviously go to Madrid. I think you either go to Madrid or Barcelona, but you obviously go to Spain, and I think you do it in 2024. At the number 4 spot, we have Rome. Now, I think this is perfect. You do a Marvin Vettori main event. Obviously, Marvin is not the biggest star in the UFC, but I think that in Italy, it would work great. And obviously, the marketing on this card would be absolutely incredible. I think you could do a pay-per-view here. Obviously, you would have to, bring somebody other than Marvin Vettori then to main event. But still, if we're just bringing Marvin to main event, I think that you easily do main event Marvin in Rome. I know that's not where he's from, but still, it's the perfect thing to do. And I think that the gladiator build-up marketing would be absolutely impeccable. I don't think that there's going to be a better marketing opportunity than the UFC in Rome. You know what I mean? You throw up some shots of the Colosseum. It'd be perfect. And, the UFC has never been to Rome, and they haven't even been to Italy. Okay, so they haven't even been to Milan. They haven't been to any other city inside of Italy. And I think that that is a tragic mistake, and they're missing out on a lot of money there because, honestly, the Rome and that market over there is sort of untouched. Honestly, it's untouched. I mean, the UFC's never been there. They don't have a big thing going on over there, so I think that an event there would be absolutely huge. You sort of see that turn on a place and spark it, sort of like what Cyril Gane did to France. And I think that Marvin Vettori would do that same thing. Now, the only issue with Italy is the fact that they do lack a little bit of modern infrastructure in terms of arenas. Now, what I have on here is the Palazzo della Sports Arena. It's an 11,500 capacity, which is not great. That's sort of small, and you can see it on the bottom left. It is a little bit dated, but that's sort of what you're going to get in Rome. They have some great soccer stadiums, but, their MMA and their indoor basketball stadiums are really not there. Milan would be a much more modern option, but you would also lose out on the gladiator combat type thing, although you could still market it as Rome. But I think that the Roman fight would just be the best, and I think that you do it in Rome with Marvin Vettori. I think that Rome deserves a title, or I think they deserve a fight, and I think that this is the place to do it, Rome. Now, coming in at the number 5 spot here, we actually have 3 cities. We're going Prague, Czech Republic, Budapest, Hungary, and Zagreb, Croatia. I think that any of these places would be absolutely amazing. I think that an Eastern European UFC event is needed. They haven't done one in a while. I think that you do Yuri Prochazka in the main event. Obviously, he's fighting Alexander Rakic at UFC 300, which is going to delay this plan a little bit. But I think that Yuri Prochazka makes a ton of sense on the card. Obviously, you could do, throw Alexander Rakic on this card as well. Put Jan Blachowicz on the card. It makes all the sense in the world. I think that the venue you do it at is the O2 in Prague, which has a capacity of 18,000. There's a ton of places, though, across these 3 countries, and I just think that UFC needs more of a foothold in Eastern Europe, which I think is a huge untapped market for the UFC that they don't really go to too often. At the number 6 spot, we have Stockholm, Sweden. I think that this represents all of the Nordic countries. I think that you need an event in one of these Nordic countries, and I think that Stockholm, Sweden is the place to do it. Now, obviously, the main event here is a little strange because we don't have Hamza Chimaev representing Sweden anymore after some things that happened with Sweden, but there's still some talent over there. And the issue would be finding a main event, but I think that you just do a European fighter here. I don't think you do a Cyril Gane main event because you got to save him for Paris. However, I think that you do a European fighter in this instant, and I think that you go to the Avicii Arena, which has a capacity of 16,000, looks super nice, looks like the Sphere in Las Vegas, and I think that the Viking heritage would be an absolutely sick, thing for this card, a sick build-up. Obviously, you could throw guys like Alexander Gustafsson on the card, and I think overall this would be a fun card. I just think that there's more European cards to be had and more European locations outside of just London and Paris, and I think Stockholm, Sweden is the place to go. Coming in at the number 7 spot, we have Manila in the Philippines. This is absolutely perfect. You do the first event down there, Southeast Asia event, without going to Singapore, which is very important because, they do go to Singapore a lot, Singapore Indoor Stadium. So it's slightly used up now. And I think that Philippines, it would introduce MMA to a giantly boxing-focused audience. And it's a big audience down there, Manny Pacquiao fans. And it would really bring them into a great fighting culture. And obviously, the Thrilla in Manila. Now, I think you do it at the 55,000 capacity National Stadium, the stadium in Manila. But you could also do it at the Aranate Arena, which is where Ali vs. Frazier 3 went down, which was the Thrilla in Manila. Obviously, the marketing for this UFC Fight Night could be insane. Stack the card again with Asian fighters, and it works amazingly. And again, it's a very significant cultural fight, and again, the Thrilla in Manila is just a huge event, and I think it would do wonders for hype about this card. Coming in at number 8 on our list, we have Beijing or Shanghai, China. I think that this is the perfect place to go to. Huge population, so many possible fans there in China to be reached. So many more talented fighters in China that would see this event. They would get in the gym. I know they have a PI over there in China. Obviously, you do Zhang Weili main event. I think you do her versus Yan Xiaonan. So either way, a Chinese person wins on the card. You put Song Yadong on the card. You put all the other Chinese talent on the card. It works out great. You put some other Asian fighters on the card, and I think overall it works out great. They have amazing arenas over there in China with major infrastructure. I think you go to the Mercedes-Benz Arena in Shanghai, 18,000 capacity. It absolutely works. And I think overall, it'd be a great event and a great event in Asia. Coming in at the number 9 spot, we have Seoul, South Korea, or Tokyo, Japan. Neither event has had a UFC event since COVID. Neither country has had a UFC event since COVID. There's so much talent from these countries. I think you do Tatsuro Taira in a main event. Now, obviously, maybe saying, oh, he's not a big star yet. I think that you do Muhammad Makaya versus Tatsuro Taira at Saitama Super Arena, which is a legendary stadium in MMA. And obviously, Japan means a lot to UFC fans and means a lot to mixed martial arts fans, as Japan is a sort of significant part of mixed martial arts history, and we would not have what we have today without Japan. And so I think that you go back there and do a culturally significant fight in Tokyo, Japan. But obviously Seoul, South Korea would work as well. Load the card again, Asian fighters. It works great. I see no issue with having this fight in Seoul, South Korea or Tokyo, Japan. Now coming in at the number 10 spot and the last spot on our list, we have Chicago, Illinois in the United States of America. Chicago is yet to have an event post-COVID. They're the 3rd largest city in the USA, which is insane that you don't do an event there in the 3rd largest city in the USA when you've been all over the USA to the Spectrum Center in Charlotte, Bridgestone Arena in Nashville, Florida, Arizona, Utah, everywhere. But Chicago can't get an event. Come on, people, go to Chicago. Bilal Muhammad main event if he loses to Leon Edwards. And I think that's the perfect thing to do. United Center, man. Come on now, it's the place to go. Or at least I think you bring a pay-per-view here. Honestly, I was saying Bilal Muhammad Fight Night, but I think you bring a pay-per-view here, man. This is the biggest NBA stadium inside of the United States of America, and I think that you definitely bring a pay-per-view here like UFC 238. Chicago's the place to go. Now this is a bonus little thing I have right here. These are some bonus cities and venues. UFC 300, I believe, should be at Allegiant Stadium, which is the stadium that you see on the top right and the bottom right. That is a football stadium. I don't think that you should do UFC 300 at the T-Mobile Arena. That's where UFC 200 was, but I do know that the UFC, it's based at the T-Mobile Arena. It's sort of their home, so I don't know if contractually they'll be allowed to go to the Allegiant Stadium, but I think that's where you go. And again, they're going to the Sphere for Mexican Independence Day, which obviously is something that I wanted, and I think that that's an amazing thing to do. Lastly, there were a ton of cities that I really could not list off on this list. I just thought that, I'd list major metropolitan areas with pretty nice facilities. But obviously, I think an event in Africa would do absolutely amazing. I think the UFC Cape Town, South Africa would be amazing with a Dricus du Plessis win. I think you bring a pay-per-view there. However, I do wish you could go a little bit deeper into Africa. South Africa is great, but it's not really the heart of Africa when you're thinking of like the Democratic Republic of the Congo, where you had the Rumble in the Jungle with Foreman and Ali. I think that that's a great place to do. I think you could go to Kigali, Rwanda, which obviously is super modern and super nice now, super safe. It's a great place to go to. Infrastructure there is great. Lagos, Nigeria, infrastructure is lacking a bit, but obviously it's one of the biggest cities in Africa, and I think that a fight night there would be absolutely amazing. Obviously, you have to go to Africa at some point, and I think that UFC Africa would do major numbers wherever they go in Africa, and I think that it would be such an amazing event and such a fantastic event and really a culturally significant event as well. Anyways, you all, I'm going to go to sleep. Thank you all so much for watching. It means a lot. I will see you guys all in the next one. Please subscribe and like the video. Thank you so much for watching.